Do you think there are any benefits to video gaming, like besides entertainment?
No, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, besides wasting your time, wasting your energy, wasting sleep, and staying up all night for no reason other than, sweet, I got a new achievement by walking through a door.
How long would you say a usual session is? How many hours a week or how many hours a day?
Per week is about 30. It's been a little skewed lately because of Skyrim and Assassin's Creed, but usually 30 per week or around there.
Yeah, 10 to 20 for me. A few hours a day. Depends on how mad I get while I'm playing. Increases or decreases time playing.
Do you think there are any benefits to video games besides just being entertained, playing around?
Well, it definitely vents frustration for me. Like when I have a bad week and I'm just like, "Urgh, gotta go to my video games." And then, sometimes if I'm feeling like down, I'm just like, man, just last week I stayed Hyrule. Like I can do this. I can do this.
So what kind of video games do you play?
I mainly play first-person shooters and sports games.
So what kind
We did a survey on 50 students at Full Sail, and these are our results. Role-playing games, 32% of Full Sail students played this. Real-time strategy, 20%. First-person shooter, 20%. MMO, 11%. Other, like Angry Birds, 10%. And sports, 7%. So knowing what kind of games your peers play, does this give you a better hope for connecting with? Do you think that video games can be used for networking?
Yeah. I've networked with quite a few people I've played with over Call of Duty every now and again, like a few people that I like playing with.
And games like WoW, where I haven't played WoW, but I've got a lot of friends who play WoW, and you can really tell how am I going to say this? When your friends are playing, they meet people from all over the world, and they actually become like Facebook friends with them, and they form like their own little team, and who knows, man, maybe they'll end up hanging out one day.
Do you think that video games can be used for networking?
Oh yeah, it's just it's an easy social interaction tool with people. Easy to talk. You can cuss and not get in trouble for it, which is like the best part.
And internationally, you can talk to people from different countries and stuff, like through Call of Duty and other online gaming.
Now, from the people that you play video games with here, do you remember where you met them? In class, school, grounds, or like in a party?
I kind of met them through my roommates.
Gotcha.
Kind of like one of my roommates used to be in game development, so
A lot of gamers through there.
a lot of like the gaming community over there. So it was cool to meet them. Yeah.
Definitely.
How often do you play with other Full Sail students?
Well, my roommates are all from Full Sail, so I play with them a lot. And
The same way, so I guess every single day.
and from other
That
students
way.
from other programs as well, I play with online.
How often
Do you think video gaming could be used for networking?
Absolutely, I use it every single day, and some examples I could give you are like I play WoW a lot, and I make money from the videos that I make, and just review videos pretty much. I know a couple of instructors who play WoW at Full Sail, and I play with them regularly, and we have this like different type of bond / relationship, so it could really help later in my future. And I also have a friend from halfway across the world in Holland who is moving to live with me in March, which is pretty cool. And that's pretty much how I think video game can be used for networking.
Do you think there are any benefits to video gaming, like besides entertainment?
Yes, I do. I absolutely think video games can be used as a networking tool. One, you can find a job opportunities, make international connections, and even find true love. Woohoo! Like, oh my gosh, so much fun. Yeah! Gaming network for life!
It turns out that a common thing you want to do in a game is move your character according to a grid. And it's certainly possible to have a game where this is not the case, but especially in a lot of old school classic games, this is how they worked. They worked on a grid system. Let me show you. First, if you look at a room, you'll notice that it's composed of a grid-like structure. Now, I just so happen to have chosen a grid to be 50-50. So 50x, 50y. Now, by default in GameMaker, it's 32-32. My sprites, however, the sprites that I chose, I made 50-50. And I had to resize some stuff to get them to fit right, but once I had things the right size, I was good to go. And so now everything was working off of a 50-50 grid. And this is very important. When the queen moves, I'm not going to allow her to just go anywhere. If I press right, the right key on my keyboard, she will only be allowed to go here. If I press up, she'll only be allowed to go there, left, there. And so she can only move within the grid. It's almost like a checkerboard or a chessboard. And let me just show you how this works. I have the motion set up so she can move to the right. So I click right and she can move one space to the right, but if a wall is there, she can't move. So I'm pressing right, nothing's happening. And let me just show you how we'd set that up. I'm going to do it again, but I'll do it for the left movement. And before I do that, let me just point this out. First of all, if you look at my sprites, you'll notice very quickly that there are a lot of sprites just for the queen. There's a right sprite, so her moving right, a sprite for her moving up, a sprite for her moving down, one for her moving left, and one for her standing still. If I look at the queen object, you'll notice that I chose standing as the default, and as we look at the code, you'll see when I choose to change the sprite to something else and when I choose to leave it at standing. Alright, let's get going. So I already have this right one in place, but I'm just going to make one for the left just from scratch and talk through why it is the way it is. Because if you understand why it works this way, you'll be better able to be creative with it and go your own unique direction with it later on. So I'm going to add an event, and I'll do left. This will be a keyboard event, and the reason for this is I want to be checking, I want it to sort of be happening constantly. I don't want it to only happen when I press the key or release the key. I want to kind of do this constantly. But I also don't want to be able to move the queen unless she's in a grid space. Let me go back to the room real quick. So for example, as she's walking from this space to this space, for a little bit she'll kind of be in an area in between the grid spaces. And while that's the case, while she is no longer aligned with the grid, I don't want her to be able to, I don't want basically the right key to have any effect on the game whatsoever. If I press right, she'll start moving and she'll stop moving when she gets into the right place. Alright, with that in mind, let's look at the queen, and let's look at the left event for the keyboard. The first thing I want to do is I want to check, is she aligned with the grid? And there's an action for this. Here it is, check grid. And when this box pops up, I want to make sure that I put my snap horizontal and vertical to 50. And that's just my example. You could do whatever you need to for the size of your sprites or how you want your game to function. And in this I'm going to click not, and the reason for this is so that this sentence up here, basically, if instance is aligned with grid, and let me zoom in on it, it really reads now, if instance is not aligned with the grid. So if the instance is not aligned with the grid, I don't want to do anything. So I'm going to drag out this exit this event action. So again, if the queen is sort of in transit, she's walking from one grid space to the other space, she will no longer be aligned with the grid. And if that's the case, don't do anything. If she's moving around, just exit the event, don't do anything else that follows. Alright, the other stuff that follows is for when she is aligned with the grid. So we can just imagine her at the beginning of the game. She's in a grid space, and she's just standing still. She's sort of ready to take my commands. If I press right, she should move to the right. If I press up, she should move up. If I press left, she should move left. So we're working on left right now. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that she's not going to run into a wall first. So that's what, oops, grabbed the wrong one. That's what this check collision is for. So I'm going to check collision, and I'm going to make sure that she's not going to collide with a wall. And I'm also going to check relative, because I want to be checking for walls relative to her current location. Alright, so here, yes, I only want to collide with solid objects. Now, it's very important that I set if you look at my wall, you'll notice that the solid box is checked for the wall object. Okay, and remember, she's moving. This is testing to see if she could move left. So we're really asking, would there be a collision to your left? And that would be a negative value for x. So remember, it's a 50 by 50 grid, so this would be negative 50. And that's all that really is saying. Check 50 to the left, or negative 50 in the x direction, and check to see if there would be a collision. And if there would be a collision, don't do anything. But if there wouldn't be a collision, if it's sort of open space, well, then you can start moving. So that's what this is saying. If there is not a collision to the left, then let's do something. And the something that we're going to do is going to be move leftwards. So I'm going to take out this move fixed, move leftwards, and let's say with a speed of 5. And this is actually very important. I'll come back to this in a second. That I chose 5 for a reason. And then we also want to change the sprite. So I'm in the main 1 tab, change the sprite to the moving sprite. So moving left. Okay. And getting back to why I chose 5 is because it needs to be a number that goes evenly into 50. So 5 would have been good, 10 would have been good, I could have chosen 25 would have been fine, although that would have been probably way too fast. And the reason these are good is because it's going to ensure that as the queen is moving, she will end up back aligned with the grid at some point. If I chose 7, she wouldn't realign with the grid, because she'd go 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, but she'd never get back to a 50 until much later on. And that's so she'd never be perfectly aligned with the grid, which would be a problem. All right, let's see if this works. Let's see if moving at a speed of 5, when I press left, if this works. All right, left, good. And now I'm pressing left again, and she can't move, so I can move her left and right, and she can never move past a wall. Now, why is she stopping? I click right, and she moved to the next grid space. That's great, but why did she stop? And that's a piece of code I haven't talked about yet. That's here in the begin step event. And now you may not have used a begin step event yet. When you go add event and you choose what type of event, it gives you the 3 options: step, begin, and end. Well, the begin step happens before everything else. So remember, there are 30 steps per second. And so like here on this left and right, this stuff happens in sort of the main phase of the step. That happens sort of in the middle. If you want to ensure that something happens before that, then you put it in the begin step. And the thing we want to ensure that happens before that is that we check to see if it's aligned with the grid, and if it is, we're going to stop it from moving. So imagine the queen just kind of walking leftwards. As soon as she's aligned with the grid, she'll stop moving, and her sprite will change back to the standing. This is essential to get her to be able to stop. Alright, so if I play that again, you can see it working. Alright, left, right, great. Now let's just get the up and down working as well. And here's a little shortcut for you. We can duplicate one of these. So I just noticed that for my left one, I didn't use the code blocks, and they weren't necessary. I don't need these code blocks here, but they probably make it look nicer. I tend to want to use code blocks every time I have a condition. Technically, you only need to use them when you have something like this, where you have more than one action that needs to be conditional. That is, more than one thing that needs to happen only under a certain condition. But I like them here too. But realize that they weren't necessary. So I could delete that, and I could delete that, and it would still work exactly the same. I'll put them back in for now. And let me show you how to duplicate. So if I right click and I go duplicate event, I can choose a new keyboard event. So keyboard, let's go up. Well, this is very good. I don't need to change that, I don't need to change that, but I need to change this because I want to check to see if there's a collision above, which would be a negative y value, negative 50. Good. And then I need to start moving in the up direction, not the left direction. And I need to change the sprite, not to the left sprite, but to the up sprite. Great. Let's do the same thing for down. So I will duplicate event, and I'll choose down. And now it's the same sort of thing here. This stuff is good right up here, but I need to change the collision to check for collision. So let me change that to, again, we're not checking the X value, we're checking the Y value. We want to see if there would be something below it, or if there's a wall below. So we do a positive 50. And then moving in a direction, we don't want to move to the right, we want to move down. And change the sprite. Instead of sprite right, it should be sprite down. Okay, let's check to see if this stuff all works. Can the queen move up? Yes. Down? Yes. Left and right? Yes. And she's moving according to a grid. So that's kind of cool basic motion, and it works surprisingly well, I think. You can build really cool games off this basic mechanic of having things move with the grid. This is how a lot of old games like Zelda and Frogger and other games are made, and it's still a useful technique to know. So with that, I hope that helped you, and I'll see you in the next video.